Got on my leather jacket Thriller. The show ain't nothing Miller. Man, I'm a lady killer. If I want her, I'ma steal her. I promise I can make her fly away like caterpillars. So if you don't know by now, then you should probably get familiar.
Hey everybody, welcome to Bonnie Ask the Experts. And today you get to get familiar with me and George. We on Friday, I said that we were going to have some special guests, and George and I decided that it would be fun for the two of us to take your comments and questions live, and also to discuss some of the things that that happened over the weekend and that are going on right now, and we'd sort of interview each other for a change. So welcome, George, from lovely downtown Staten Island.
Welcome. Thanks, Leticia. Good to see you. Glad to have you back from South Carolina. We missed you.
Well, thank you very much. I miss being in Staten Island, although it was beautiful in South Carolina. And just for anybody that is wondering, South Carolina is not overrun with COVID. In the county, especially that I was in, it was very much under control. There were no cases, and everybody wore masks, including me. And the restaurants were handling the pandemic really, really well. 6 feet apart tables. People were going out, but they were cautious, and we all wore masks all the time. As a matter of fact, I have my ritzy red, white, and blue American flag mask, which I should have actually brought to show you. It matches my shirt and my earrings. It's really lovely down there, and it's great to see a state that has a handle on what's going on. Testing was way up, so I don't want anybody to get that confused. There were a lot of new reported cases because the line for testing was around the corner, George, every single day.
There's something, about testing I think people should know. I'm on this big push that the way we gauge how the success or failure of how we're dealing with corona is done on the worst principle humanly possible, the number of tests we're giving. Right. Now, what people don't realize is if I'm a nurse, or not a nurse, I don't want to say that because I'm not sure if nurses have to do this, but a lot of places require you to test continually to go to work.
Right.
Every one of those tests is counted in the numbers. So if I get 9 tests, George gets 9 tests, there's 9 added to the number of tests given in the state.
Yeah.
And if I have COVID, if I have the antibodies or COVID, all 9 of those tests come back as positive cases. So These numbers are extremely, to me, you can educate me. I'm speaking as a citizen, maybe you can educate me, but that skews any value in reporting those numbers that way.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm not even sure how they're reporting things. I can tell you this much. I can tell you these are things I know to be true because they happened to me, okay? I had symptoms of COVID in March. And when I called my doctor and told him that I had symptoms of COVID, he called to see if I could get a test, and they said no. They said, if you're sure she's got the COVID, treat her, and we'll test her later for the antibodies. And sure enough, I went through the COVID, I went through the treatment. I had the hydroxychloroquine, by the way, with a Z-Pack, and within 2 doses, I was feeling my old self again. You should know that my symptoms were, I had a low-grade fever and it wasn't even consistent. It was about 99, and it would come and it would go. And I was fatigued, but not consistently fatigued. I had a cough, and in the beginning, that cough wasn't persistent. I thought that I had allergies. And I would sleep for a couple of hours in the day, and then I'd feel fine and I'd be able to move around. But the one thing that I did have that everyone in my family who had COVID had was we lost taste and smell, And after the hydrochloroquine, which there's such controversy about it now, and I don't understand it because it worked 2 doses and I was feeling better, and I finished the whole cycle. But after that, I went to get tested for my antibodies. The first time it was inconclusive. The second time it was conclusive that I had strong enough antibodies to donate to to donate blood and donate to help other people who had it. And so they wanted the antibody test though before they'd allow me to donate my plasma. So now what I know is that in South Carolina and in other places, testing is way up. Back then, there weren't enough tests. Now there are more tests. So everybody can get tested. You don't need a doctor, you can go and get tested. And that's what everybody was screaming about in the beginning. They wanted that to happen. Now that it's happening, though, we're seeing far more people coming with a positive exposure to antibodies or actually having COVID. So the asymptomatic is going in with the sick. So I believe that if we really want to figure out how this is affecting us, we need to see how many hospitalizations there are and how many deaths.
Deaths.
And the
deaths per capita, with a factor for density. I realize that there are dense cities, right? But
Right.
the death per capita is the only way to me. To me, and I get argued with all the time. Well, we don't know the long-term effects of COVID. Death might not be the only harm it does. But okay, but we can't live life that way, can we? I mean,
you might stay alive, but that doesn't mean that you live. And I mean, look, we went through this already. We went through this with H1N1 in 2015, I think it was. We went through this with Ebola. We've gone through this with so many other diseases, and never to the extent of hysteria as we're seeing now with COVID. And I have to tell you, I don't know if it's just because of politics, because it's an election year, but it sure feels like it.
it sure does to me too. At least the way we're reporting it is being politicized, and both sides of the aisle are using it as a conversation point, and causing fear and disruption for the sake of an election and the hatred of our current president, Donald Trump. My opinion, that's escalating it. I am not denying the virus, because that's also what I get said. I am not the guy walking around without a mask on. When I go anywhere, I wear my mask. I am a socially responsible person, and whether I believe it or not, I would like to make other people feel comfortable, so I wear my mask. But the way it's being portrayed is being politicized to a degree that we're not really talking about what's going to make things better. We're talking about what's worse. The way the tests get sent out, and the way I see it on the left and I see it on the right. I see the left doing it worse, as far as counting the number of cases reported in Texas. Texas, I think it was 120 people total died in Texas.
Yeah.
Who cares how many cases there were reported in that state? I don't understand it. When I say that, people think I'm trying to kill them. I can't take it anymore. It's insane.
So they're saying that 1 in 100 people are testing positive for COVID. That doesn't mean that 1 in 100 people have become sick from COVID. It just means they tested positive for COVID, because people are asymptomatic.
Well, no, not 1 in 100 people, 1 in 100 tests.
1 in 100 tests, right.
It's a very different number.
Yeah. Oh, no, I don't think so. No, I think that what we're seeing overall, George, is less than 1% of the country, is and I'm not even sure of that number, so I'm gonna stop.
You're
I'm getting all my
right.
numbers confused.
Yeah.
But I do believe that America has the most COVID cases right now, but we're also 360 million people, and we have densely populated cities, and we move around frequently. So it's not as if our country is overrun, and the projections of our governor, Cuomo, or other alarmists have come true, right? That we were going to, the deaths were going to number in the millions and whatnot. I think that, 2020 hindsight, right, is everything. But I've been saying this from the beginning, and you know it, George. My feeling was that you have to let it run its course because of lots of things. Number one is we didn't know anything about this virus, right? We knew nothing about it. And that showed in the beginning because just like Italy, we slapped a lot of people on ventilators and we killed them all, right? Almost every single person that was on a ventilator died. Then the governor sent people back into the nursing homes with COVID, killed another, couple of tens of thousands of our greatest generation dead because of that. We didn't know enough about the disease, so therefore we didn't know how to treat the disease. And if you don't allow people to get sick, then how do the doctors know how to treat the disease? They don't. So now, fast forward after all these months of having of the disease being out there, why the people that are contracting COVID today are not dying from it, where people before were dying from it? It's not about the age. It's about the treatment and what the doctors were able to learn from the prior people that had the disease, from people like me. My husband, my daughter, my grandson all had it differently. And so did we do ourselves a disservice as a country by shutting down for so long and not allowing people to actually have the disease so that the doctors could study it? I mean, we can't answer that question now, but my instinct is we did ourselves harm. We probably would have been much better off had we let it run its course and had we protected the older people and the people that had underlying conditions, and then let the rest of us go on about our business. And probably we would have learned more faster, and we would have had more antibodies out there, George, right? There'd been more plasma for people to get well. So
yeah, I mean, it's clear to me that that's even the flu, right? There's a flu vaccine. That vaccine changes every year. The strain of the flu changes every year. I'm not a doctor. My assumption is every virus acts this way, right? It tries to fight the cure. It tries to survive. It's an amazing little bacteria or whatever virus. And I think we're going to see the same thing with COVID. And the reason I think, I'm agreeing with you, but we need to make sure that we realize that herd immunity really is very important. And what you said is protecting the very vulnerable so the rest of the strong can gather that herd immunity is what's really going to end this.
Well, and that's up to us, and that's why wearing a mask is important. Do I, supposedly now that I've had it and I have the antibodies, I shouldn't be able to get it again. And so that's terrific, but I'll still wear my mask because I don't want anybody who comes into contact with me or sees me to feel uncomfortable. And that's a part of being, it's social etiquette. It's for your health, our health, but it's also the right thing to do socially. But I'll say it straight out to anybody just so that they feel a little bit better when I run into them. If I get close to them, I've already had it. I have the antibodies. I've been tested. I just want to let you know that. And they'll go, oh my God, you had it. And we'll talk about it. And I think that that's important too, because so many people only hear what they hear on the news, and they hear the blood clots, and they hear, people dying, and to meet somebody who's, I'm not young, I'm pushing 60, and I'm obese, and I managed to survive through it, and it was, for me, it acted like a really bad cold. I coughed so hard for a week that I was silent, and my husband was very grateful. He would have been more grateful if he wasn't sick himself, and he could have enjoyed the quiet. But at any rate, so that's, I'm back from South Carolina, and I want everybody to know all the information you get from network news, from any news source, please, trust and verify, because the way they were making it sound up here what was going on down there. And having been through it up here, it was night and day. It was not happening like that in South Carolina. And so I'm very proud of the governor of South Carolina and all the elected officials there. They kept us informed. They moved swiftly, and people listened. And so that was a great thing. But while I was away, there was a lot that was going on, including we had plenty of protests going on. And recently there was yesterday and Saturday and Wednesday, when I couldn't be here, there were some protests for Blue Lives Matter. And I know that the one in Staten Island was put together by Scott Remauro, and it was well attended by a lot of our Facebook friends. And then there was another one on Saturday as I was actually en route to driving home. And then yesterday there was one in Bay Ridge and in Bayside, Queens. Yeah. And we had some conflict, right?
Yeah, we did. I'll bring it up here. QUNS.com, Queens.com. Yeah, demonstrates clash with Black Lives Matter protesters. I just don't want to see this hard line being drawn in the sand, because nothing is rarely black and white. No pun intended. It's always gray. So to me, I look at this as a disappointment. I don't want to. When the Black Lives Matter protests happened here on Staten Island, whether I agree with the sentiment of Black Lives Matter, not with the organization Black Lives Matter, but that's a whole nother story. At Staten Island, I was really happy because there was none of this. Now we're starting to see, it get a little squirrely. So you could talk to it more than I do, because I didn't read this article, to be honest with you.
Basically, I think it comes back to the cancel culture, right? I mean, so the BLM have been holding protests all around the country and the world. And the idea here is that they are stating that the police are going after people of color, Black and brown people, and they're killing them. And they want the police defunded, and their voices have been so loud and clear that lots of elected officials are caving, and they're, city after city after city are defunding the police, including our own mayor and city council here, who cut $1 billion out of the budget of the police department in New York City. And I just want to say that's the police department that's total budget is $6 billion. $6 billion with a B. It sounds like a lot of money, except for when you put it against a $92 billion budget, which is that of the city of New York. So the police department of the city of New York, their budget is less than 10% of the city's budget. And oh, by the way, they are the police department that has to police 8.5 million people that speak 363 different languages, that has the largest public housing development in the world, that has I won't say all, but a majority of the nation's icons, such as the Empire State Building and the Freedom Tower, and oh my God, the Staten Island Ferry, and Wall Street, and Macy's, and the Brooklyn Bridge, and I can go on and on and on and on. And it is the police department that has international terrorism. It is the police department that defended us when terrorists flew planes into the World Trade Center. It the highest drug crimes ever, the largest homeless ever, 65,000 homeless people. So that's the police department they want to defund them. And they defunded them by $1 billion. And
did I hear that? I heard this through somebody else, so maybe you could verify it for me, that there's going to be violence interruption officers now. Did you hear about that?
Well, I have heard that these new deputized officers that de Blasio is talking about will come from the community, and and they will be called upon to go out with the police and patrol. So, to, I guess, keep the police honest, to keep the peace. I don't know. And to me, that's insanity because, George, we have had another killing spree over the weekend, and it's only getting worse. Well, now we lost a 1-year-old baby, a
Yeah.
1-year-old baby. We've lost a 4-year-old. We lost a 7-year-old, whether it be in Chicago or New York or Seattle. That 19-year-old boy who was on the spectrum. We're losing people constantly to violence, and they want to defund the police, and the BLM is winning on this, which to me is insane because, listen, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it clear. The sentiment of nobody should be killed or targeted because of the color of their skin or their
Yeah.
sex or their religion is a sentiment that I support with my heart and soul, and have actually been out there marching, and I wear it on my sleeve. If you look during the David Dinkins administration, I was the coordinator in Staten Island for the increase the Peace Corps, which was all about making sure that people came together and understood what linked us together and not what was different. And whether it was gay or black or white or Asian, that's what I did. So anybody that knows me knows that's who I am. But what BLM is not that. BLM is a
It's false.
Marxist organization. And quite frankly, in my opinion, it's loaded with anti-Semitism.
Clearly.
Farrakhan is a big part of that. And it is a group of people that want to undermine our government. They want you and I to give up our rights to freedom, and they want to erase our history. And they are so good at their messaging, George, that people that I consider my children have started, and who are of different races, have started to pick up this mantra of the BLM and have called me a colonist. And that is so offensive to me and so disturbing and distressing to me because their goal is to separate us and to destroy us. That's what their goal is. And I don't know. All I know is I'm so upset that I wasn't here for the Blue Lives Matter rally.
There's another big one coming up. You're going to get your chance. I'm going. So
Yeah.
we'll be in Brooklyn.
I'll be there because what was also distressing to me is that this weekend, a Texas police officer was killed and he was shot to death. And his daughter posted on Twitter her sadness about her father's death. And a horde of cancel culture, a horde of I don't even know the words that I want to use.
Be careful.
Privileged terrorists be set upon her because she had the gall to use the hashtag Blue Lives Matter. And that girl was already grieving the loss of her father, a police officer who was respected in the community and who nobody had a bad word to say about it. But these privileged terrorists, these cancel culture mongers, decided that it was a good idea to bully her. And that's just too much.
Well, look what they're doing to Goya. I mean, Goya might be one of the greatest altruistic companies operating here in the United States, run by a Latino. All he had to do was show support for our current president, and they're trying to cancel Goya, a company that on the regular donates millions and millions of pounds of food to food banks across the country, and who gives scholarships to Latino families and children all throughout the country and the world. suddenly, if you even, it happened to me, and I want to talk about that too, because I'm still disturbed about what happened with me and Jay Miller, and I'll talk to you, we'll bring it up in a second, but how do you cancel a company like that? You don't have to be so absolute, right? If we're playing a zero-sum game, it ends in the Mason-Dixon line. We don't need that. This needs to be a softer approach to me. And you can disagree with me and yell at me. I may not be understanding this clearly either, but you can't just all right. He said he liked Trump. You're out. I got called a racist by Jay Miller, the guy from Impractical Jokers, on my Facebook page, and I said, "Can you cite any incident in my life with anyone ever?" Because you know me, and I'm not going to go through the "I got a black friend" routine. I'm not doing it. But I am the most open-minded person on planet Earth, and to have somebody like that, when I asked him that question. Can you cite something? He said, yeah, you support President Trump.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, how does he know I support President Trump?
Right.
Because I'm a Republican? How does he know that?
Right.
Know me.
Right.
I support Obama. I support any president that's in office, right? And I do my best not to destroy the country because I don't like that person, right? It's not my angle. And my Facebook page history will show that. Nowhere on my Facebook page do you see Trump 2020. Why? Because I'm into local politics. I don't even think about it. I vote for the one that I think will support my issues the best. And my issue is foreign trade. Now, am I a Trump supporter? Yeah, he's getting my vote this year for sure. Because I am not voting for Joe Biden under any circumstances. The same way I didn't vote, that I voted for Obama the first time he ran because the opponent was clearly insane to me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a Republican. I didn't vote Republican in that race.
Well, just an FYI, in case you vote for Joe Biden, you're not really voting for Joe Biden. You're voting for whoever's going to really be president.
Right. The vice president. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Whoever. Yeah. Right now it looks like it might be Bernie Sanders. We got Bernie Sanders and AOC making a pact with Joe Biden, to adopt the Green New Deal and all of the principles that they were all running on. Now, I don't understand this. Why did they even bother giving him the nomination if they were going to do this? I mean, this is the clearest bait and switch ever for the American people. And if we don't pull it out.
He said it himself.
Yeah.
I'm a transitional candidate.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I mean, it means that he's got other people telling him what to do. Look, the fact is that for 43 years, Joe Biden has served in some way, shape, or form as as an elected official, right? And he has said and done some outrageous things. And frankly, they talk about Trump being a racist, and I haven't seen one incident of racism with Trump. I know that Trump has employed the best and the brightest. They call him a sexist, a misogynist, a racist. I don't know. Trump has employed more women in more top-paying jobs than any other president that's been before him. Maybe it's because also those other presidents never created a job. I don't know. But I know that Trump has employed more women and more Black and more Latinos and more Asians and more pick your color than any other president, because Trump created jobs, right? He's always created jobs. That's what they do. That's what he does. So he's always done it. So where's the racism with Trump? But if you go back and you take a look at Joe Biden's record, he's clearly has been supportive of the KKK and their Cuba, or whatever they call it.
How can they overlook that? He said he doesn't want the schools to be desegregated because he fears for the problems it'll cause. He said this on film.
Absolutely.
And he's not being branded as a racist.
He said that poor kids are every bit as smart as white kids.
Yeah.
That right there. You don't need anything more to know a person's heart than that comment. Because that was off the cuff. And that was not a misspoken word. That was in his heart. Put those things together, and that's who Joe Biden is. Now, turn around and say, who's Donald Trump? Is he an arrogant son of a bitch? Absolutely. Is he
Yep.
polarizing? 100%. Is he hyperbolic? Absolutely. Do I long to sit at dinner with Donald Trump? Truly, no. Do I know him? Yes. Have all my dealings with him been fantastic? I can tell you that my dealings with him have been political, and he's a tough negotiator, and they didn't end in great words, but from my mouth, not from his. I was pissed at him when I left because I was asking him to support a candidate, and he was hedging his bets, if you will, and he wasn't going to give the full Monty for the candidate. But at the end of the day, do I respect him for what he has done? For what he's done for this country, but before that, for what he did for his business and what he's done for others? The answer is absolutely yes. Because whether he started out with $4 million from daddy or not, he still grew an empire. And I don't care if that empire is worth $1 billion or $100 million. I don't care what it is, but he has an empire, and there's no doubt about it. And he understands business as good, as well as any other billionaire that I know. Now let's go on the converse. So Joe Biden leaves office in 2016, and his tax returns say he made $400,000 that year. But yet in 2018, his tax returns say he made $4 million.
Isn't that interesting, huh?
You made $4 million? Doing what? Giving speeches. Only giving speeches. Really? And did those speeches, were they arranged by anybody that, I don't know, had any investments in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, China, Russia? Who wanted you to give them a speech so much that you're able to make $4 million doing it? Now, either you were on the road every day giving speeches, or you were collecting a hefty sum of money for those speeches. And George, you and I both know we're both in Kiwanis, we're both in business organizations, we both serve not-for-profits, we all donate our time. We do, small business owners donating our time to help those organizations raise money.
I donate as much as I make. And yeah, and I don't make a lot. I'm not a rich Republican like everyone would love to think. I am a middle class guy that has fought for every dollar that I have and smile when I can help somebody else. And that's why when again, I'm going to get twisted on this guy, Jay Miller, because I can't get it out of my head that somebody who doesn't know me and doesn't know my time dedicated to not the South Shore, the North Shore of Staten Island, screw you, sorry. I get a lot of people that like to bitch and moan. And sorry, I'm hot on this. I like to, they like to bitch and moan, but I don't see them doing anything to help their community. Zip, nothing. They bitch and they moan. They're not out there helping, right? And helping isn't just money or donations, right? To me, it's time. So I'm going to put this out there to anybody that's going to criticize anyone. Make sure you look in a mirror before you open your mouth, because there are people that really care about Staten Island, and you're going to shoot them down unknowingly.
But there is, in my opinion, there's no common sense anymore, right? Where they're running, we saw it. These kids tore down statues of abolitionists, saying that they owned slaves. I mean, they
tore down a Frederick Douglass statue.
Yeah. So there's no communication anymore. There's no reasoning. There's no common sense. And let's go back, for a minute and talk about what you said about somebody labeled you a racist because you're a Republican, because you're a Trump supporter. And let's talk about Goya. So we're boycotting Goya because he said good things about the president.
Yep.
Think about that for a minute. We are Americans. And you're allowed to say whatever you want about your president. And there were plenty of people who have plenty of negative things to say about every president since I've been conscious, alive enough to understand it,
Yeah.
right? So whether it be Nixon or, or Jimmy Carter or Bill Clinton, there's plenty negative to be said. But we have a group of young people, or I don't know if they're young people, Marxists, calling on others to boycott a company because that president actually said nice things about the sitting president of the United States. Now, how does that make any sense?
It
What
doesn't.
kind of business acumen do these young people have? Do these people have, right? We've decided that now we're boycotting based on popularity. I don't
Well,
think that's right.
yeah, an ends to a means, that because they donated money to the president. But again, I'll
He
support
didn't
their
donate
right.
money to the president.
What's
They
that?
called on the boycott because he said something. He said he was a terrific president.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's just terrible. But here's the thing, right? It's their right to boycott, right?
Yeah.
It's their right to boycott. I will never take that right away from you. When Nike did what they did, I was done with Nike. I was done with the NFL. I didn't walk in the streets with a sign saying it or screaming it, but I'm being honest, that turned me off. I don't want to watch football and get a social message. I get my social message everywhere else I go. I want to enjoy the game, right? When I'm getting social messages during my entertainment time, which is sparing these days, right? I'm out. That's my boycott, right? So I don't knock them for boycotting, but I don't think they really understand who they're boycotting or why they're boycotting them. They just know that guy supports the president. Like me, you support the president, you're a racist.
And it is the irony is that they're so hypocritical because
Yeah.
the whole sentiment supposedly behind BLM is don't judge me because of the color of my skin. Don't judge me without knowing me, right? Don't judge me on first glance. That's what BLM is supposed to be about. But they're judging people based on color of the skin, their political message, their religion. I mean, look, in France, they didn't even hide their anti-Semitism in France during those protests. So, we've got this whole movement here is, make no mistake about it, it is a movement to undermine the United States of America. And if we don't stand up and be counted and stop it, and I don't mean just by saying, oh, I'm pro police, or and being on our computer behind the keyboard and posting things on Facebook. We don't stop it by either withholding our taxes, by either showing up to say, hell no, I'm not taking this, refund the money, restore the money to the police, because babies are being killed. Babies are being killed in the street.
Do you want to
If
go to?
we
Do you want to
don't,
go to the AOC clip because
oh yeah, let's go to the AOC
Yeah.
just so that I can see it up for everybody. So Ocasio-Cortez had a town hall meeting, and it was and they were talking about the police, and so she is talking about, in this clip, she's talking about the defunding of the New York City Police Department. Go ahead, roll it, George.
There's something about this uptick in crime. Let me make something super clear for everyone. The New York City Police Department has not been defunded. Even with the budgetary pieces that were proposed in city council, A, they're not fully enacted. B, they aren't a real $1 billion cut. And C, it's not really, it's like cuts aren't really real. And again, about their budget has not prevented this uptick in crime. We have funded more and more, we have shoved more and more and more money every single year into the NYPD, $6 billion. And it has not prevented this uptick in crime. So why, but let's back up. Why is this uptick in crime happening? Let's really think about it. Well, this uptick in crime, the NYPD themselves have told a story that this is by their own data. At first, the NYPD, they went out and they said, okay, this uptick in crime is happening because of bail reform, because of all of these reforms that we have now. Wait, but they just released data a couple weeks ago that showed that out of almost all the people who have been found to have committed crimes, etc., almost none have been legally due to bail reform. Like their actual crime data from the NYPD, not even independent data. This proves what they're saying. So why is this uptick? Well, let's think about it. Do we think it has to do with the fact that there's record unemployment in the United States right now? The fact
No.
that people are at a level of economic desperation that we have not seen since the Great Recession. Maybe this has to do with the fact that people aren't paying their rent and are scared to pay their rent. And so they go out and they need to feed their child and they don't have money. So they're put in a position where they feel like they either need to chop some bread or go hungry. Maybe it's the fact that unemployment positions have not been given to them. Maybe it's the fact that some people still haven't gotten their stimulus yet.
So, yeah. Okay. So number one, maybe it's because there's record unemployment right now. Well, as I recall, AOC was the leader against Amazon, who was going to create tons of jobs in Queens and in Bronx and in New York City. And AOC led the charge against Amazon and said, no, we don't care about your jobs. We don't want you here. So she's acting as if she has nothing to do with the record unemployment. That's number one. Number two is, we're talking about shootings. Why is she talking about bread? Why is she talking about people, an uptick in crime, which is shootings, not thefts, and not recognizing that we're talking about violence here?
Weren't there children killed? Like, didn't you send me?
There was a 1-year-old killed this weekend. A 1-year-old who was doing nothing more than sitting outside and having a picnic with their family. There was a 7-year-old killed in Chicago last week. There was a 4-year-old killed a couple of weeks ago. There was a 19-year-old killed. These are children that are dying here. And she acts as if,
That's not about bread.
no big deal. It's no big deal. We're stealing bread. This crime is about stealing bread. No, these are shootings. These are hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of shootings in the last 3 weeks.
Because people feel empowered right now. They feel empowered that one, they know the police are checking out. They know it, right? Sorry, I know there's still a $6 billion. I know the budget still says $6 billion, but the police, and I don't blame them, are how do you engage? You do anything, you'll be on the news and you'll be done for. So George, the budget is irrelevant. It's the mess that caused all this.
I forgot to send you the link that I wanted you to play. This weekend there was an arrest made, and I believe it was the Bronx. And while the cops were, I think it's on my Facebook page, and while the cops were arresting the guy, there was somebody filming it, and the bystanders got involved. And one of the guys, I'm getting feedback, one of the guys put a cop in a chokehold. And the cop couldn't fight back because he wasn't allowed to get, to put the guy in the chokehold. It's not that the cops have checked out. It's not that the cops don't want to make the arrest. It's that the cops are outnumbered. What she said about bail reform was bullshit. We have all those people not going to jail after they're being arrested. So why arrest them again if they're going to be let back out?
Yeah,
We
why
have
waste the
9
time?
men who has said, I'm not prosecuting. So why bother arresting people? You've got a police department that is demoralized and that are thinking twice before getting into scuffles like that, because that gun could just as easily go to their heads as, to their bulletproof vest. So why are they going to risk their life for a city that hasn't yet stood up for them?
That's
And
right.
for her to say that the New York City Police Department statistics weren't even factual is probably the most nonsensical thing I've ever heard. Because somebody was let out on bail reform wasn't let out again on bail reform, that means it's not so. Please, just please.
It's a pack of crazy like I've never heard in my life. The police are very important to everybody, and I think everyone knows that. I think the media is really, I think more people are in agreement on this issue than people really know. Nobody wants to live in a non-safe environment. And what's that going to do to the economy of New York City? Remember the days when the Bronx was burning? We were not like this economic beast because people didn't. And now it's more than ever because businesses aren't going to be open, right? Now, the face of commercial real estate, not because of COVID, was on this direction anyway. It's
It's
going
on
to
the
change.
decline already.
Yeah. So what's going to happen to those buildings? We could move people into them, right? We can make living apart. Who's going to want to live in a dangerous place? Nobody.
Nobody.
So where's the money
Families do
going?
not want to live here anymore. Look, I am as pro Staten Island as you could be. I'm as pro New York City as you can be. But I'm going to tell you that I don't see an end to this because we're so outnumbered. And after running the race with Nicole Maliotakis and seeing people say no to her, dismiss her out of hand because she was a Republican, even though they hated de Blasio, and even though they knew it was going to come down to this, where we are right now, they still wouldn't vote for Nicole. And we had the lowest turnout ever. And, barely a million people voted in that. I'm sorry. Yeah, a million people voted in that election. And 350 voted for Nicole and 700,000 voted for him. So where were the rest of the 4 million people who didn't vote? They didn't come out to vote because they felt that a choice between a Republican and a Democrat, and that Democrat was no choice at all. Well, as long as New York City continues to go in that direction, we're screwed. Either we need to see a good, strong third-party candidate come up who's
Yeah.
going to appease both Republicans and Democrats, or the Republican Party's got to get off of their effing ass and start to run candidates in every single district. We have Brandon Lantry is doing a great job here in Staten Island running
I agree.
Republican. Andrea Katsimatidis is doing a great job. Teddy Cora is doing a great job. We have great leaders. They need to come together, and they need to find good Republicans to run against these very socialist, very Marxist people that are, infiltrating our city. And that's
We're not
they're
talking about Democrats here, right? We're talking about something totally different to me. I mean, Democrats and Republicans used to be, we split hairs. The gap is so massive now.
It's massive. And listen, and Joe Borelli, God bless him, because Joe Borelli has been a solid and consistent voice in the city council to support our police, to say, when things are fair and when things are not fair. He has been right out there on property taxes, on speed cameras,
Yeah.
on opening businesses. He has been a fantastic champion for sanity in the city council. But There's no other people that are championing the Senate. All right, Bobby Holden from Queens, who ran on the Republican line in 2017, as he's a Democrat, but he took the Republican line and he won. He came out and he was championing the police. But are you telling me that in that whole city council, there's only 2 council members that are going to be vocal for the police? In that whole city council of 52 members, only 2 are going to stand up for our police department. Only 2 are going to stand up for our sanity. And if New Yorkers say that's okay by me, then we don't have a New York City anymore. When
Well,
people like
you'll see that gonna
AOC
happen.
and these freaking socialist Democrats can destroy Amazon's, corporate headquarters, from coming to Queens, from coming from building fantastic jobs and a future for so many people, and they can say no and toss them out. When Christine Quinn and socialist Democrats can say no to Walmart in New York City because they're non-union. And listen, I'm a union girl, but negotiate. Get them to see their point of view. They're non-union. Figure out a way.
Well, that's
What
cancel
you
culture.
do,
Cancel them. Just
get a
cancel them.
community agreement together. Figure out a way to make that work so that people have jobs. Well, I've got to tell you something. The one thing that's going on right now is down South Carolina, all the real estate agents, they can't take all the phone calls they get. They just can't. I mean, they call me every 10 minutes asking me if I want to sell, my condo, because they have to go down south. And we will be a ghost town if we don't do something
It's
about it.
already going to happen. It's too late. I think it's too late to a degree to stop some of that from happening. But hopefully we correct it quick enough to send it back the other direction.
Well, we need to send a message in November 3rd. We
Well-
need to take a look at what's going on. And you know what? You've got to say to yourself, truly, I mean, look, if you don't like President Trump, I get it. But if you lean more with what he has done than with what AOC is doing, or with what Bernie Sanders was professing to do, then you need to look at him. Because if you vote for Biden, you don't know what you're getting. I'm not even going to say if you vote for Biden, you're going to get blah, 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 because I don't know what you're getting. I mean, I know if Biden was actually going to be the president, what you're going to get with Biden is an old white Democrat who is a racist. Who might not be a mean racist, but he's a racist.
Yeah.
That's what he was brought up with. Who is a misogynist, because that's what he was brought up with.
You
He
know,
did not live in New York City, and Donald Trump might have stuff in his heart because of his, feelings in his heart because of the generation that he was brought up in. The martini drinking, voguing generation where women were to be admired and all that. But his actions have demonstrated who he is. He has put more women into high power, high profile positions than any other elected official on the planet.
yeah.
Not in America, on the
And
planet.
if I remember right, didn't he allow transgender people to use the bathrooms at Trump Tower, or am I remembering that wrong?
Oh,
I remember that
absolutely.
whole fight.
He had no problem with the signage. Listen, he is a corporate.
He's a capitalist.
He's a capitalist, and that's what this country is. And it's going to come down to that. Do you want to remain a nation of capitalists, or do you want to be a socialist nation? And if you don't know what a socialist nation is, if you don't know what a communist nation is, look at China, look at Cuba, look at Venezuela, look at Iran, look at Iraq, look at these countries, and say to yourself, is this where I want to live? Because that's where you're going if you are going to vote for Joe Biden.
This time went by so fast. It's like
It
us
did,
talking
but
in the
before
office.
we end, let's talk about mail-in ballots.
Let me play this clip that you gave me here about mail-in ballots and vote security. Everyone is already setting up the narrative that if Trump wins, it's because he stole the election.
Yep.
Let's take a look at this, and you tell me. And I agree that it's a huge concern. Hold on, allowing me go.
George, I don't think we can hear it.
Yeah, now it's too low.
Yeah.
You can't hear it at all?
Nope.
Okay, hold on. Let me use my speaker to play the sound. Hold on. I thought it would come through.
A West Virginia postal worker is facing time
Better?
behind bars after pleading guilty to attempted election fraud Thursday. Thomas Cooper, a mail carrier in Pendleton County, West Virginia, pled guilty to one count of, quote, attempt to defraud the residents of West Virginia of a fair election and one count of injury to the mail after he was found to have altered absentee ballot requests using a black pen. The Department of Justice said that Cooper changed 5 ballot requests from Democrat to Republican, but the adjustment was caught by the county clerk who knew the voters personally and knew they were not Republican.
So basically, for our viewers, and I want to say hi to Lenora Palermo, who joined us. For our viewers, that's a story about a postman in West Virginia who changed the registration on some absentee ballot forms, and we don't know yet why they were Democrats, but he changed them to Republican. Now I don't know why. Nobody does. He hasn't said why, but he pled guilty to doing it. But this is a postman, and this was U.S. mail. And that's what that postman did. For whatever his motivation, his reasons, I don't know. But that's what he did. He changed their registration. So nullifying their vote, I'm not sure. We have a big controversy in America about whether or not this mail-in ballot situation is going to result in corruption. And a couple of things that we know. We know on election night there was some primaries for county committee members in the Sam party, right? And we're familiar with the Sam party.
Yeah, Frank and
Nick Robbins, our friend, was the head of that. I think he still might be. And it's a
Frankie
new party.
Morano won, I think.
Frank Morano won as, I think, state committee member.
Yeah.
But at any rate, as the ballots returns were coming in, Frank Morano was counting publicly and saying, hey, wait a minute, how did we get 7 votes on the Sam line when there are only 3 members in that district? And that happened all over the state, and it happened more than one time. And this was in the poll sites, not even on paper. This was in the polling place that this happened. And I know from being the Republican county chair in Staten Island, one of the most winning chairs that there were during the Bush era and the Bloomberg administration and the Jim Molinaro era, that the county chairs in New York City, in New York State, appoint people to the local boards of elections. And it's similar in other states. It's very political, the appointments, the jobs at the Board of Elections. And usually those jobs come as a reward for good service to the party. And many of those people, many of those people are older individuals, and even more of them are friends, relatives, or people that are not employable anywhere else. Let's just put it that way. And so getting this election situation straight is so important, yet we put it in the hands of people that we don't know if they're qualified, because there are no qualifications for being appointed to the Board of Elections. The county chair calls up and says, here's my political appointment for this job. And the administrator of the county says, okay, because they have to have so many Republicans and so many Democrats. Now, if we replicate that throughout the United States, what we've got is a whole lot of political operatives with no proven skill set counting our most precious vote. And that the future of our country is ultimately in their hands, because they're the ones that say who won and lost, and they're the ones that then the Electoral College, when they get together, they generally go with whomever won the election in that state.
Well, now they're mandated to by the Supreme Court. You saw that?
That's right. So we need to really rethink the way we vote in the United States, because we are putting our votes in the hands of people who have no test, no IQ test, no skill set. They don't have to have graduated. They don't even have to read. They don't. They don't have to speak English. They don't have to read. And the poll workers, there is such a shortage of people who are willing to sit at the polls from in New York, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. that, and anybody can become a poll worker. Anybody could work at the Board of Elections. So, and think about this. This is the future of our country. These are the people that represent us. And the people who are, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form condemning anyone who works for the Board of Elections, because I appreciate you if you do, because you're protecting our votes. But there are some that make mistakes, and we've seen them over and over again. So here's my bright idea, George. I told you I had a bright idea, and here it is. In Georgia, we've seen voter suppression, right? We've already seen that call over and over again that in the South, people are saying African American and Hispanics are being denied their vote. We see in New York voter suppression for the Republicans, right? We had in Dan Donovan's 2010 Attorney General's race, we had lawyers go to the Bronx because poll workers were saying, this is a Democrat poll. We don't have any Republican books here. Maybe you have to go to PS so-and-so to get the Republican books.
That
and
happens a lot.
Voter on a wild goose chase, they never wound up voting. How about this? Why don't we use thumbprints, fingerprints? Why doesn't everyone who is registered to vote be mandated to put a thumbprint? And they will get a card with their thumbprint and a scanner card. And that will match up with their thumbprint in the Board of Elections, and they can cast one vote. Whether they cast it by mail, whether they cast it electronically, whether they cast it in person, you could get 50 votes for the same person, but only one will count.
Right.
The way that we're going to figure it out is through the thumbprint. And that technology is already there, right? Because we have a database of thumbprints. You have to get fingerprinted for any federal job, for any city job, for any state job, right?
It's simple technology. It exists everywhere now.
Very hard to duplicate somebody's thumbprint, right? Right now it's iRetina or thumbprint. Now, people have said iRetina. I think that's a little bit more difficult, to hook up with the Board of Elections. But thumbprints, we have that technology. And so if we want to ensure that everybody who is eligible to vote votes, let's use our thumbprints.
I love this idea. I think where would you meet resistance on this idea is giving the government a list of names and fingerprints, right? That would catalog the entire country into a database. You don't even need to put their name to it. You can just have them go into the polling place. When they hit beep with their thumb, me, I'm a technology guy, so I'm thinking how to make this more palatable for everyone. Beep your thumb, and that's it. You voted. You registered your vote. We don't have to know that it's George.
But yeah, listen, here's the thing. If you are not a citizen of the United States and not eligible to vote, you can't vote. So you have to connect it to somebody, right? Right now, the Board of Elections asks people for the last four of their social, right? Supposedly, they'll look them up to see if they are eligible to vote, if they're a citizen of the United States. But they have no way of checking that. It's bullshit.
You're not allowed to talk to the Social Security Administration, right?
Right. Well, they don't have the ability to talk to the Social Security Administration. So, they don't have that connection because it's a state agency. And then it goes, and it's city appointed, but they're not logged into the federal database, right? But if we're going to do this, right, everybody's Social Security number goes through the federal database. So now put their thumbprint with their security number. If they want to vote, then they get to register to vote, because not everybody wants to be registered, right? So it's not that everybody's going to have their thumbprint on file. Only the people that want to vote.
Yeah,
We'll be
I
right.
love the idea. I think, it always blew my mind that there was I understand why 50 years ago or 70 years ago, I can palate more why they didn't take ID back then. But now, back then, the excuses are always, well, you'll be restricting people who don't have ID or can't afford to get ID, or not anymore. It's
Yeah.
you go to the city, you get a non-driver's ID card very easily, and show it when you get to vote. What's the problem? Why is that a big
Well,
deal?
I'm getting rid of even that argument. It's not about everybody has a thumb and everybody
Yeah,
has a
I
thumbprint.
love the phone.
So you don't have to spend any money. You don't have to do anything. I want to register to vote. Here's my name. Here's my address. Here's my zip code. Here's my date of birth. Here's my everything. Here's my thumbprint. That thumbprint gets scanned in. It goes right into the database of now. I'm a registered Republican living at this address. I'm eligible to vote in these elections. Here's my thumbprint. When I go to the Board of Elections to vote, that ballot, thumbprint.
Yeah,
Thumbprint.
no, I'm for it. Totally for it.
So,
I think
so for
it's safe.
everyone out there that wants to stop, yeah, people from being denied the opportunity to vote and make sure that our elections aren't being stolen, I am pushing for thumbprints. And if you agree, I want you to write in to our governor and start asking for thumbprints to be mandatory. I think that we need to write some op-eds on it. I'm going to certainly get to it, and we can end voter suppression, and we can make it easy for people to vote. And same day voting, registering and voting, why not? As long as there's only one in the whole state that votes with that thumbprint, what the hell's the difference? So everybody,
Yeah.
thumbprint voting. This is the wave of the future. Too bad, George, we don't have the patent on thumbprinting machines, but I'm sure somebody out there will come up with a great way to make this safe, secure, and to get it up and running before maybe even the November elections. Hey, we're in post-COVID era. Let's make it as easy and safe as possible, and that's safe. And anyway, so now we're really over 7 minutes and 24 seconds over. It was great, George, talking to you about some of the really important stuff. On Friday, we have Vito Bruno, who's running for state senate in Brooklyn. He is a small businessman who ran for borough president in 2017. He's brilliant. He brings a lot of insight to the seat, and he also knows a lot about small business. So we look forward to talking to him. George?
Good to see you, Leticia. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Hey, Lenora, we didn't say hello to you today. Good to see you, Lenora.
I did, and I said her name right. Palermo. Lenora Palermo. I don't know where Lucille and my mom are, but hopefully they'll watch later. All right, ciao, everybody. See you Friday.
Thanks.